When I wake up really early in the morning and the time change has happened so the sun gets up when I do, the sunrise paired with the fog and the dew and the sound of my old coffee pot spitting out the last bits of heated water into the coffee grinds. The cold bite of morning air mixes with the temperature of the room under an open window pane. It's quiet. Sometimes there are birds chirping. It's a romantic scene, but it's not my favorite place. When there are a pile of dishes in the sink that I will not wash that night, there's music in the background. Those are signs that there are people piled onto the futon. In those moments, the barn becomes my favorite place.
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
So, Randy, we're going to talk about the farm.
About a 12-minute drive from UGA's North Campus, on the east side of Athens, there's a little plot of land with a gravel drive and a red gate. When you drive down the bumpy road and that crunchy sound of gravel meets your tires, you'll drive up on a green and brown structure that looks like any other barn that you could see anywhere else. On one side, it is any other barn. It's got a tractor and work equipment and feed for the cattle. And on the other side is an apartment. And that's where I live.
What was the process that went into buying the land?
So I was in Athens and I was looking at industrial property for a customer, and I got to know the realtor he was working with, and I had told the realtor that I was looking for farmland and that if he ever ran across anything to let me know. So about a year went by and he actually contacted me and said that they had a piece of property that was that had ended up in a land holding company in California due to a bankruptcy. And he told me about it, and I went out and looked at it, and it was really rough. And I made an offer, and then didn't hear anything for 6 months. And then one day out of the blue, they called and said that the offer was still good. And I told them, yeah, it was.
When I decided to go to UGA, I asked Dad if it would be possible for me to live in the barn. We had talked before about building some sort of apartment, something out there where we could live off and on as we figured things out, and so I thought maybe it'd be possible for me to live there full time. He sat on it for a while, and then he said, Molly, we have 3 months to build you a house. And I remember being so grateful. I was so grateful for a dad who both could build a house when I needed one, but also was willing to go with me into my dreams. And so I was at a different university at the time, so I would go to school during the week and then on the weekends head out there. It was rough at the beginning. There was a concrete floor and unfinished walls, and so we slept on cheap mattresses we bought from the store on a plastic tarp on the concrete floor. And we started with the walls, and we wood paneled it, we cut the wood, we finished the wood, we staple gunned it to the walls. I had learned power tools before, but there was nothing like hours on hours of standing in a forklift with power tools building your own house. Some weekends we'd get my sister out, some weekends we'd have my mom out. It truly was a family affair to build the house that I live in.
Do you know anything about the history of the land?
A little bit. Up until, and this is just what I've been told, so I don't know if this is totally correct or not, but up until the early 90s, The farm was basically one piece that went from Old Lexington Road all the way out to Highway 78, and it was owned by the Bernstein family. I believe it was a brother and sister that ended up with it. I believe it was his parents, or I don't even know, it might have been his grandparents that originally had it. And then when it came to him and his sister, it actually got split into two. And my north line was the splitting line between the two. And the original, at that time, I've been told, was a little bit over 800 acres in that farm. And it was basically up until the late 70s, early 80s, it was actively farmed. And it was primarily row crop. And there's old aerial photos of cotton being grown and corn and all kinds of different things. If you go back far enough, it was actually part of a very large plantation that I've been told was called Bald Point. And I do not know the original size of it, but it pretty much took up that whole side of Clark County going down Morton Road. It was very, very large, and the 10 acres that was off the farm that kind of sits in the middle, there's a little old house there that was redone by, I forget the name of the people, but that was actually the quarters for the foreman that was over all the slaves for the plantation.
And it's still standing.
It's still standing. That's the house that they redid.
We finished building the barn on New Year's Eve, which was fortunate because I thought we'd be done earlier, and I invited a lot of people for a New Year's party at the barn to kind of break it in. And at the time there was not a kitchen at all, and we had finished the walls and the AC and the water, and so it was good enough to throw a party. And so we dragged one of my dad's old work tables out of the other side of the barn and put it in and sanded it down and finished it real quick so that we'd have something to put food on, and ran to IKEA and bought a bunch of furniture so that people would have somewhere to sit. And I loosely threw up some paintings I had made and some random pieces that I had from my other apartments, and it worked, and we had an incredible time. And that was the first night in the barn. 27 people stayed that night, I think. It was a lot of fun, and I just remember thinking that I was so fortunate to be a part of this story where I get to live in a barn. The barn is a place that has mattered to me and will continue to matter to me. I don't really know how to sum up how my life has changed in the last few years at UGA, but I do know that when I look back on UGA and I think about my memories, I won't have the conventional story so much so as I won't think of football games, and I won't think of final seasons. I'll think of being at the barn and people everywhere, and our movie nights, and cooking, and letting people stay there when they needed to bunk up somewhere for a while, and kayaking and flipping the kayak because the dog's in the lake and someone has to go get him. And I'll think of memories, really important memories, like first kisses and learning how to swing dance and learning how to build a fire and watching people become friends and crying really late at night with my friends over really devastating news and getting incredible phone calls about what's next in life. And I think that that's what matters. I think it really matters to have a place that you can look to in each season to call home, and how fortunate am I that the place I call home is a barn.